Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 49. We are trying to dance around with Atlantis. Yeah, we have a lot of attacks from Atlantis. Chose not to go in a lot of places. Definitely pretty concerned about our unsupported super combatants. It also looks like this is probably a lantern attack. Playing another game. Oh no, maybe not. This does not look like horrors. Oh, that's cool. Atlantis gets like probably a national remote attack spell. Yeah, this is not good. This is our buddy. So it's a shame that this chose to target our support mage rather than our super combatant. I imagine, it's kind of a 50-50 situation. We're already kind of struggling to give him support. And this is definitely going to make it a lot harder. So, yeah, it was a nice move from Atlantis. Not something I realized they had, but yeah, well, hopefully, we're not probably going to come up with any answers to it. But we probably will change the support structure for them, which kind of already planning on doing. We do find a magic site. We chose to hang out and search in a couple of places where we weren't going to raid forward into. Speaking of raiding forward, Ulm attacking, using these little crossbow squads, which, I've used crossbow squads to raid. They're going to beat 1 PD. It's pretty cheap, so, pretty effective, but it's going to lose to more or less anything it runs into, so that's kind of a downside. Also, depending on the PD type, wouldn't take that much province defense investment to defeat those crossbow raiding groups. Then again, we've seen Ulm, this looks serious. We've seen Ulm use their immortal vampire, so they are using some other raiders, which makes it risky to invest province defense because it might get taken out by one of those guys. So this looks like a pretty serious force from Vedheim. A lot of capital-only mages coming out, some crossbowmen, some summons, some of their sacreds, a lot of random birds, which do provide useful distractions. And it's going up against a pretty serious force from Marignon. A lot of devils, which are really dangerous. A lot of casters, though not a ton of bodyguards. And the birds are going to be somewhat dangerous if they jump on these human casters in robes. Actually, no, they have leather armor, sort of. I still don't think it's likely to help them all that much, although it does look like some of them have bodyguards. So this looks like a fairly serious air communion, I'm guessing, from Marignon. Probably like Thunderstrike, maybe if there's some gems in there, some air elementals. Also, their Pretender, very serious blood caster and fire caster. Also a ginormous jaguar, so that can be somewhat dangerous. So anyway, enough discussion. Let's see what they're gonna do here. Yep, communion goes up. Devils go in immediately. Birds also go in immediately. Devils is a choice. The birds are undisciplined, so they just do their thing regardless. You can't script them. Looks like Aerofend coming up for Marignon. Definitely relevant. Both sides actually having a decent number of crossbowmen. Unfortunately for Vedheim, it looks like most of their birds got distracted with the devils. We have Wailing Winds cast. By Vedheim, had to double check that because anybody can have a white mage in theory, but Vedheim does have more death magic. And that's going to be a pretty powerful spell, but I don't know if this battle's going to go long enough. We have a Natural Storm also cast by Vedheim. Their Pretender of Frostfather is here as well. I missed him. And he's usually somewhat squishy, so that's a little dangerous. So hoping to stop some flyers, but it looks like the Devils, that's probably why they went in turn 1. Also fatigue play, so it is unfortunate these Devils got back here because Vedheim was probably hoping to drag this battle out, and these Devils getting back is going to be a problem. Let's see if Marignon... they did not get any cold resistance off, which is bad news. Unless possibly Devils have susceptibility to cold 10, but I think it's just 5. Regardless, using Devils in the cold like this, pretty challenging. And you can see they're starting to fatigue out really quickly. Devils don't have a lot of protection. It doesn't look like they've gotten any protection buff, so while they do have, air shield from Aerofend, this is not looking good. There's some skeletons and such coming out. Fog Warriors making out eventually. It definitely looks like, the Communion taking its time. The crossbowmen from Marignon just routing off due to Wailing Winds. Looks like Wailing Winds... no, that was a false horror, which shares the same noise. But Rigor Mortis has also gone up, so a double fatigue play from Vedheim. No relief from Vedheim, so I think they're just counting on the fact that, the cold, most of their units have cold resistance built in. They can see, obviously Rigor Mortis will put them to sleep, and, they're planning on making some skeletons, so they probably figured on the balance was, going to be better for them when most everything fell asleep. I thought I heard a jaguar. Not sure what happened to him. Theoretically, nobody can be flying. Here he is. But it does look like his morale's broken. I don't think he managed to do too much. Yeah, that does look like an HP route for Marignon. This looks like it worked out pretty well for Vettiheim. You know, pretty well scripted. And, like, yeah, it's going to be a painful loss for Marignon. They're probably going to lose a lot of mages here, too, as the communion gets cleaned up. Some small danger that the battle... Nah, round 12. Vettiheim should be fine in terms of the battle timing out. So let's take a look at the losses. So Vettiheim definitely lost more than I was expecting, including their Pretender, which is a little painful, but I mean, I guess at least the Pretender can be recalled, and most of their mages are also priests or priestesses. So they can probably recall them relatively quickly, and then a lot of their chaff losses, like crossbowmen, are pretty cheap. Yeah, they're even cheaper than normal units. And Blackhawks, you know, they do cost air gems, so that's always a little sad, but I mean, at the end of the day, they are chaff, either for patrolling or, you know, throwing into a battle like this. They don't lose any of their cap-only mages, so that's pretty big. You know, these mage losses do hurt, but it's not the end of the world. For Marignon, the losses aren't, you know, catastrophic. This is a serious army, but probably, you know, it's not like a doom stack. The 32 Devils is pretty significant, I think, and these Hands of Justice are cap-only sacreds, though I don't really know how much Marignon is relying on them. Losing 8 of the Chart Makers, they're not that expensive, but that is a good number of fort turns, so that's definitely going to hurt. The God does escape, so that's important. Yeah, it looks like the Royal Navigator bought the farm as well. That's probably a cap-only mage. Not actually 100% on that. But yeah, a fairly costly battle for both sides, but definitely better for Vettiheim. And then we have Ulm striking out against Atlantis, which is good news, because Atlantis is our foe right now. It definitely looks like we're getting attacked quite a bit. Okay, this is just a ping against this Doom. This is more of a Doom stack from Atlantis here. I was thinking this might head our direction, but it looks like it is interested in trying to take the fort. Gifts from Heaven coming out. It's always a little dangerous from Atlantis. But it can be a decent answer, you know, to things that you otherwise would really struggle to kill. And then, yeah, we're on the defensive here in a lot of places. Most of these we're probably going to lose, but we definitely, you know, stayed in a couple provinces in the hope, of catching things. So, yeah, this is one of our super combatants going up against one of their thugs. And this thug is definitely more focused on getting rid of province defense, like the Vine Shield particularly. Isn't going to be that useful against our guy. We have pretty high magic resistance with this one, 25. Hopefully we'll get Soul Vortex up, although it matters less for us in the defensive. There is a decent amount of province defense here. I don't think we'll HP route. I'm pretty sure we'll be fine, but a little bit concerned about that. And then, let's see, what weapon do we have? I think we're using, like, Firebrands. No, this guy's got a Lightning Spear. That should be pretty good, right? I mean, we have high strength, so we're going to be dealing a lot of damage. And I don't think Atlantis has too much in the way of shock resistance. Yeah, no shock resistance on here, right? They got fire resistance, which is good. We have, well, good for them, bad for us. We have a lot of fire magic, but, you know, Lightning Spear. And so, like, yeah, we're able to clean this guy up pretty easily. We don't grab any of the gear, which is a little sad. Like, maybe should be providing just some regular commanders that, you know, have no slots. Also, too, that'll help dilute the remote attacks. So we may just recruit like a cheerleading section for each of these guys, and then, you know, they'll have like 4 or 5 indie commanders hanging out watching them do battle. So that's exactly the kind of result that we got, you know, we were hoping to get from hanging out. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of more important than picking up territory. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's going to be a lot of these. Well, wow, okay, maybe these guys are cap only. For some reason, I thought they weren't, but at 425 gold and 4 recruitment points, I mean, don't get me wrong. Our guys are more expensive in just about every conceivable way. But maybe we won't be seeing as many of these thugs from Atlantis as I was fearing. And then our mage does retreat successfully. That's nice. That was part of the plan. A number of players have been using that pretty extensively. I don't know. Personally, I don't love it. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, yeah, we didn't leave any defense here. Not really sure what this is. Kind of a medium-sized commitment. It's got some throne mages in here. Yeah, you know what? I think this is probably a place that we bailed with one of our super combatants. I am somewhat worried about Soul Slay communions, though, you know, we do have good magic resistance on most of our guys. One or two of them I sent out without the Amulet of Anti-Magic, and I kind of didn't realize that Atlantis got as much Astral as they do. They can only recruit these Forgiving Fathers from underwater forts, but they have plenty of underwater holdings, and when I was looking through some of the stacks, I realized, actually, there probably are some Soul Slay. Yeah, there's a Soul Slay. So yeah, it's probably a good thing that we moved that Super Combatant out. We need to re-kit anybody that doesn't have an Amulet of Anti-Magic. But we do lose a province there, so, that's always a little sad. But, we only left the one province defense so that we could see what we're going to be up against. And then here's another thug attacking us. Unfortunately, we don't have an answer here. I'm not actually sure where this is. We do have a lot of barbarians, but I don't think that's going to help us. Yeah, certainly not against, Fine Shield and Soul Vortex. Forget about it. So we do lose a province there and a good amount of investment. I don't know where this is. I wonder if this guy, I think they do have the boots. They can move pretty far. Yeah, map move 25. So yeah, this was just a place at one point that I was planning on defending, but, thought that it was secure or just missed defending it. This looks like a not. There was another woods. We were hanging out in some, I think, next door woods. We had two of our guys and our pretender. Because I think there was a location, that other province is probably somewhat near this. There was a location where two of these thugs could have collapsed into, so I was a little bit concerned about leaving our super combatants solo. But considering how that other battle went, I don't think we need to worry too much about these thugs. When they come up against our tyrants, of course. Otherwise, this is fairly deep in, though it is a province I think that we took from Atlantis. So unfortunately, mostly failures. But trading this territory for removing their thugs, I do think is going to work out for us. We do need to eliminate more than just one thug a turn. But not the worst results. So we have some unexpected events. Toads have fallen from the sky, fantastic. Some unrest, we're pretty used to that. Find a few nature gems, that actually is quite nice. And then we lose some tax income and only 5 province income. We have misfortune 3. These things are expected. We still don't get the crack on this fort, unfortunately. So yeah, we'll probably poke our heads inside. We're not in a particular rush. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I do think that Utgard is not too far in our future. So I suppose in that sense we're in a rush, but nothing like a horrible failed fort storm to trigger people jumping in on you. So we want to go quickly but effectively. Now we do cure some units of their disease. These are hopefully commanders, and I'll catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we did about it. Most importantly, we still have our army in place on top of Atlantis's fort, though of course it is not cracked. At least is full heat, which is important because we are not reinforcing our heat efforts on that location. Instead, we're targeting Raga, which I do think is reasonable. Raga is absolutely a goal for us in this war, and if we can distract Atlantis a bit, that'll be helpful, but it might be overreach because Atlantis certainly could turn things around. They have 2 turns with which to do so, and I think they probably will use both of those turns. It's unlikely that this force will attack us this turn, especially when they have an even larger reinforcing force behind it, so I think these will combine and then attack us. We should crack the fort next turn. We are scrying this turn on that location, so probably rather than poking our heads in, we'll just rely on the scry. Because the longer this takes, the more opportunity there is for pain. We are moving in some reinforcements, a few Mouflon here, but much more importantly, we do have our Wailing Winds caster set up, so that's a significant boost. And pretty confident, certainly if Atlantis attacks us this turn, I think we'll have absolutely no problem. But I think even if they combine, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. We are also doing a decent amount of forging. Some of this is for magic resistance, but also some of it is for looks like Soul Slay or penetration based things. Potentially also thinking Wind of Death. Certainly, we'll have the option to. We're getting a Crystal Matrix, so we can wire some more people into the Communion. But the siege is not the only thing that's going on in the north, so we failed to catch anything with our giant group here, Pretender and 2 Tyrants, so that's definitely painful. Not to mention, it's really going to wreck this province, so, we don't really want to hang out again. So we're actually sending one of the tyrants back. This is a fellow whose magic resistance is pretty lackluster, right? He's one of the ones missing the amulet, so, he's going to go back, potentially help out in this battle, if he's able to arrive in time, and then hopefully get an amulet of anti-magic that'll either be brought forward, or you can get it from the lab once we take the fort. And of course, in a large battle, he's much less likely to be repeatedly targeted by spells that'll target his magic resistance. Magic resistance 18 isn't fantastic when you're alone, but when you're with a bunch of Phlegran troops, you're probably okay. But for the one that does have the amulet of anti-magic, we're just going to throw him at Raga, which is definitely a dangerous move, but I do think it's reasonable. Hopefully it won't be quite so cold here, because, we'll have heated up, although actually that won't have any effect on the battle. I don't know if I knew that at the time that I played this turn. So full cold is less than ideal if we end up having to fight a bunch of Atlantean troops, but I think there's reason to believe, potentially we may not have to fight that much. I am expecting this force to just link up directly. It's not impossible that it doesn't, but, Atlantis is kind of giving up this fort that's under siege, in my opinion, if they don't make that reinforcing move. So that means that our tyrant would potentially only have to fight what's in the fort and these reinforcements here, which is certainly a lot of stuff, but, at the end of the day, we're going to need these tyrants to pull a lot of weight for us, and it doesn't seem like there's that many mages here, at least so far as we can tell, based off the limited scouting report. And of course, capitals are very valuable, so denying some of that income to Atlantis and getting some of it for ourselves, even just for a turn or two, would be really nice. So yeah, we'll see. He does, I think, have a flame brand. Or sorry, rather a fire brand. Yeah, so that's going to help significantly in terms of clearing out skeletons. He doesn't actually have a vine shield, which isn't ideal. On the other hand, Atlantis has been recruiting some crossbowmen. Yeah, so that'll definitely help. Yeah, more crossbowmen here. So I think air shield, for his shield slot is reasonable. So yeah, we'll see. And then of course there's the possibility that Atlantis doesn't choose to patrol, right? They just may move into the fort, not patrol, in which case we'll lock that force in there at least for a turn and prevent them from reinforcing this other army, which means that, a chunk of stuff that Atlantis maybe is hoping to participate in a battle, hopefully won't be able to. And then we're going to split our Pretender off. This is also a little risky, but I don't think it'll be too bad. There's nothing here guarding this throne. Of course, this is next door to a pretty giant force, right? This is the one that Ulm pinged this turn. So there's a lot here. This is really dangerous. If our Pretender ran into this, they would probably die, but they just cracked the fortification here. And as I recall, there's a good amount of stuff in this fort on Ulm's side, so I think it's pretty unlikely that Atlantis is going to give up this fort crack and move, their army off. So I'm expecting a storm here. And our Pretender can definitely handle, whatever level of province defense they've left. In the south, we are also going on the offensive, mostly with our tyrants. So we're going to send one tyrant, to guard a province that potentially might get raided by one of Atlantis's thugs. But otherwise, we're sending our other two tyrants back onto the offensive. There's not a ton in here that we can see, so I'm not too worried about running into anything. And, our tyrant handled their thug pretty effectively. So definitely high hopes for these raids and, for killing a thug. At the end of the day, right, we don't have the siege strength. Like, we're never really going to be able to realistically threaten Atlantis or any of their forts here with just the tyrants. So that definitely is a problem. We are trying to address that. We do have some recruiting going on. We'll talk about that in a second. And then we have this kind of, random squad. It's got air elementals, flaming arrows, and mass protection, which, is not the greatest synergy. But it should be enough, hopefully. We're actually going to split off this tyrant, our hero tyrant, to go take an underwater province. This we should be able to hang on to. Of course, Atlantis's underwater forts are, another siege strength problem that we're going to have to solve separately from their above ground ones, or above water ones. So for the above water forts, we are doing a bit of recruitment. So we're recruiting infantry now, which sure, it's late enough in the game. Crossbows are going to be less effective. Our infantry is not great. But in terms of gold to strength, they're not the worst troops. Looking back on this, I do think potentially maybe should have gone for more of these Cyclops soldiers. I mean, yes, they do have lower magic resistance, but only by 1. But it's a lot more gold to be losing. And when these guys switch sides, it's a lot more impactful, right, than if just some of your human infantry switches sides. Not to mention, Soul Slays, right? We've seen Atlantis already put together a Soul Slay group. They're probably going to continue to do so. And these guys would go down to Soul Slays pretty quickly, even with anti-magic. And it is somewhat of a moot point because our gold situation is not great, and they are pretty gold expensive. But still, I'd say that's an aspect of the nation that I perhaps did not exercise to its fullest potential. So if I ever play them again, definitely going to give them more of a shot, but still concerned about how they'll perform. But in this game, we're going with the human infantry. If we get enough of them, we will be able to siege down some forts. And at the end of the day, right, is the tyrants that we're hoping to have carry us, generally speaking, anywhere that we don't have a massive mage communion. And then, of course, we do have this random force of Yetis and archers. I think we're probably also, adding some infantry here as well. Wouldn't exactly call this an army, but, there is a pile of mages and some Yetis. We may need to precedent, right? This is all we have. I guess we are bringing over, we're bringing over some Mouflon. So, we'll have 13 Mouflon as well. And it looks like 10 crossbowmen. It'll be bad. We need Ulm to either defeat this force or injure it significantly, because if this got loose and was able to attack us, we may have to abandon this siege, or certainly we'd have to put Raga on hold, or we would need our tyrants to come through for us big. So that covers the majority of what we're up to. We are about to research Alteration 8, which is nice. There's definitely some useful spells in Astral there for us, but I don't think we have any immediate plans to set those up and use those. We kind of already have a lot of things for our mages to be doing. In terms of the wider world, again, I don't think a whole lot has changed. We do see that Utgard is still sitting on Xibalba here. They have cracked it. I think maybe it remained cracked, right? They never got off it, but I don't know if they're ready to go back in after that failure. And overall, Vedheim, is holding their own. I was saying that they hadn't been able to turn around Marignan, but of course, this turn they turned around Marignan. Now, we do see that they have another fort that's under siege. It's not cracked, though, so we're going to send a scout over and see what's going on. It does kind of seem like Mictlan and Vedheim's war has quieted down. So that's definitely good news for Vedheim. Now they're just in a 2v1. Though I do think they're still kind of in a tough spot. They need things to change, I think, realistically, in order to come out on top. Politically, I think, Marignan is probably at least as big, probably bigger. I think, Marignan is bigger than Vedheim, it looks like, and Utgard is bigger than Vedheim, or at least very close. And both of those players seem solid, so that's really hard. When you're in a 2v1 where players that are as large or larger than you, and they're good players, even just holding your own is a feat. So without things shifting diplomatically, I'm not sure Vedheim's really going to be able to do much other than what they're doing, which is surviving. And, it's not like they're going to be on friendly terms with Mictlan. And then, of course, that leaves myself and Ulm, who are busy with Atlantis, which is, the other person in the room. So and none of these wars are close to winding down. So Vedheim alive for now, but probably still somewhat in trouble. Utgard not moving that fast, I think, right now. Probably still building up after those losses. We'll see how Marignan reacts to their setback. I'm not sure. We have not witnessed any major losses like this from Marignan, though they may have happened. Our scout network has not been perfect. And of course, speaking of our scout network not being perfect, we are missing, eyes on a good chunk of Ulm's territory, but still, from what we can see, it's at best back and forth between Ulm and Atlantis, which is not great news for us. We were hoping to not do most of the lifting against Atlantis. I'm not completely sure that we're capable of doing most of the lifting against Atlantis. We are, I think, province-wise roughly the same size, but they do have 2 capitals, and we do not, and that's pretty significant. So I think that covers the world, and that also more or less covers turn 49.